Hello, fifth graders. Here is your practice for lesson 10.1.3. We're using the algorithm to add decimals. And your first problem is 73 plus 45 and 8/10. Find the exact sum. To find the exact sum for this problem, the first thing I want to do is line up the decimal points. And you might be looking at 73 and saying, hey, I don't see a decimal point there. But remember, the decimal is always to the right of the ones column. So in this case, it's to the right of the 3 in 73. So we'd have 73, here's our decimal point, plus 45 and 8/10. Notice how lining up the decimal points lines up all the place value columns. Now, if you want to, you can put a 0 to the right of the decimal point in 73. That doesn't change the value. Some people like to have the same number of digits going out past the decimal in both of their numbers. Now we're ready to add. So 0/10 plus 8/10 would be 8/10. I need my decimal point straight down below. 3 ones plus 5 ones would be 8 ones. 7 tens plus 4 tens would be 11 tens, and that's the same as having 1 10, and then of course 10 tens is the same as having 100. So our sum would be 118 and 8/10. Here's your next problem. What is the sum of 36 and 49 and 5/10? All right, the first thing we need to do is recopy these and line up the decimal points. And notice we don't see a decimal point on 36, but there always will be one to the right of the ones column. So 36 would have a decimal point right here. And then 49 and 5/10 would look like this. Notice how the decimal points are stacked right on top of each other, and that lines up the rest of the columns. Now you can put a 0 to the right of the decimal in 36 if you'd like. 0/10 plus 5/10 would be 5/10. I need my decimal point straight below. 6 ones plus 9 ones would be 15 ones. That's the same as having 5 ones and 1 10. 1 10 plus 3 tens plus 4 tens would be 8/10. So my sum is 85 and 5/10. Okay, here's your next problem. 3 and 408,000 plus 1 and 300. All right, to do this, of course, we're going to recopy and line up the decimal points first. So I have 3 and 408,000 plus 1 and 300. Notice by lining up the decimal points, I have lined up all the other place value columns too. Now you can put a 0 to the right of the 3 in the hundreds column on 1 and 300 if you want. I'm going to do that. And now we're ready to add. 8,000 plus 0,000 would be 8,000. 0 hundredths plus 300 would be 300. 4/10 plus 0/10 would be 4/10. We need our decimal to be straight below where it is in the addends. And then 3 ones plus 1 1 would be 4 ones. So my sum is 4 and 438,000. All right, here's your next problem. 83 plus 8 and 87/100. What is the exact sum? All right, to do this one, of course, we're lining up our decimal points. And yes, we don't see the decimal point in 83, but we know a decimal point is always to the right of the ones column. So here's what it would look like. 83, there's my decimal point, plus 8 and 87/100. Now, you're welcome to put zeros to the right of the decimal point on 83 if you like to have the same number of digits after the decimal point in both numbers. Now we can add 0 hundredths plus 7 hundredths is 7 hundredths. 0 tenths plus 8 tenths is 8 tenths. I need my decimal point right down below. Then 3 ones plus 8 ones is 11 ones. And that's the same as having 1 1 and 1 10. 1 10 plus 8 tenths, that would be 9 tenths. Here's my sum, 91 and 87 hundredths. Okay, try this one out. What is the sum of 8 and 12 hundredths plus 1 and 6 tenths? To find this, of course, we're going to need to recopy vertically and line up our decimal points. So I have 8 and 12 hundredths plus 1 and 6 tenths. Notice how my decimal points are stacked right on top of each other. I'll put in my plus sign. Now you can put a 0 to the right of the 6 tenths in 1 and 6 tenths if you like to have the digits be the same number when you go out to the right of the decimal. 2 hundredths plus 0 hundredths would be 2 hundredths. 1 tenth plus 6 tenths would be 7 tenths. Need my decimal point. 8 ones plus 1 1 would be 9 ones. So our sum is 9 and 72 hundredths. Okay, here's your next problem. 4 and 9 tenths plus 13 and 8 tenths. Okay, you know, of course, we're going to first start by lining up our decimal points. So here's 4 and 9 tenths. And then 13 and 8 tenths. We need to get those decimal points stacked right on top of each other. Now I'm ready to add. 9 tenths plus 8 tenths would be 17 tenths. That's the same as having 7 tenths. And then the other 10 tenths, well, that's equal to 1 whole. Now I'm going to put my decimal point right beneath in the sum here. 1 plus 4 plus 3, that would be 8. And then 110 plus nothing, that would be, well, 110. So I have the sum 18 and 7 tenths. All right, now we have a story problem for you. And it asks this question. At the loading dock, the crane lifted a container weighing 6 75 hundredths tons and another container weighing 4 8 tenths tons. How many tons did the crane lift all together? That's a key word right here, all together. That's telling you something about the operation. All right, so how many tons did the crane lift all together? All right, to find this, of course, we're going to start by recopying our numbers vertically with the decimal points lined up. And this is an addition problem. When I'm trying to find the total amount or the amount altogether, I'm combining these numbers. I'm going to go ahead and put a 0 to the right of the 8 tenths in 4 and 8 tenths, so I have my digits going out the same distance after the decimal, just because I like to see it that way. And now I can add 5 hundredths plus 0 hundredths is 5 hundredths. 7 tenths plus 8 tenths is 15 tenths. That's the same as having 5 tenths, and then the other 10 tenths is the same as 1 whole here. I need my decimal point. 1 plus 6 plus 4, that's 11. 11 ones, right? And that's the same as having 1 1 and 1 10. Now, I would be remiss if I did not label this, because we have 11 and 55 hundredths somethings. It's not ounces, it's not pounds, it's tons. 11 and 55 hundredths tons, okay? That measurement unit's really important there. All right, here's your last problem to try. Skylar ran 5 8 tenths kilometers on Saturday and 9 75 hundredths kilometers on Sunday. How far did Skylar run over the weekend? Okay, go ahead and find out how far Skylar ran over the weekend. Okay, to find this, we are actually combining those distances. The distance Skylar ran on Saturday and the distance Skylar ran on Sunday. So we are adding those. So we have 9 and 75 hundredths. It doesn't matter which of the add-ins you go with first. I just saw that and I put that down. Plus 5 and 8 tenths. And now we can add. Now I'm going to go ahead and put a 0 in here just to even it out a little bit. 5 hundredths plus 0 hundredths would be 5 hundredths. 7 tenths plus 8 tenths would be 15 tenths. That's the same as having 5 tenths. And 10 tenths, why, that's the same as having 1 whole. I need my decimal point. 9 plus 1 plus 5, that would be 15. Okay, so 5 ones and 1 10. And my unit would be kilometers. And that can be abbreviated km. All right, so you are all finished with your practice today. Good work.